This is an SM Media production. Hi folks, and welcome to the latest episode of SM Media's Road to Cheltenham 2022. I'm Scott McPike. It's an absolute pleasure to be your host as always. Delighted to be joined as always by from the Scottish Daily Mail, Calum McCluckin. Calum, how are we?
Yeah, all good. How are you?
I'm all good, yeah. It's going to be another interesting show. We're going to cover a lot. Obviously, this is going to be a busy show. We're going to talk about a lot of Cheltenham clues. It is only 8 weeks until Cheltenham, so it is beginning to get close, isn't it?
Yeah, spring is coming. It was some of the racing on Saturday, I think, was a bit disappointing in terms of small fields. Kempton and Warwick, maybe not potentially Cheltenham clue tracks, but once you dig deeper, I think there's maybe a couple of nuggets that you could take away. And then Sunday at Punchestown was something else. I think we've seen two kind of real bona fide stars there.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into that in the recap. Obviously, we've been taking some questions as well, and we've got a few questions that are with an eye towards this week's race. And we'll start with the first one. Could Willie Mullins possibly consider the Ryanair for Energumene if hammered by Shishkin on Saturday? We're going to get into a Clarence House preview later on, but this is an interesting question. If Shishkin was to give Energumene a really severe beating, could Willie consider going up and trip with Energumene if it's an easier thing to do than beat Shishkin if he's been beat already?
I don't think taking on Allaho, a stablemate, would really suit in that regard. But if he does get hammered and if he does shape up as if he needs 2.5 miles, which we know he can get anyway, he could do. Might depend on if Shaq can come back in time for the Champion Chase as well. I think he'd want one kind of decent solid runner in that. He doesn't really have one. I think Energumene's the main hope there. Given Allaho really is the one that they have to all beat in the Ryanair quite significantly, it would have to be a very dispiriting beating, to be honest, if he was rerouted to the Ryanair at this point. Yeah,
we need to remember as well, Willie Mullins has not won the Champion Chase, so I think he will for the next few years just send as many darts as he possibly can towards that race. So I think Energumene will go to the Champion Chase even if he does get beat convincingly on Saturday if he turns up. We'll touch on that later on. Another question about Willie Mullins potentially for the festival. Dysart Dynamo, Supreme or Ballymore?
Probably Supreme at the moment. Given that he's inclined to go straight to Cheltenham and he's based exclusively at 2 miles over hurdles so far, suggests that he's going to just stick at that trip. He races a little bit keenly as well, and Punchestown's quite a sharp track, and he's burned them off, before the finish, really. Yeah. So, I mean, it suggests that there's a lot of speed there. He likes a front runner kind of type, pristine type. You go back to the likes of Champagne Fever, Classical Dream, who kind of made all as well, and a bit of cutting the ground wouldn't do him any harm either. So, yeah, I'd be inclined that you'd definitely be leaning towards the Supreme, but they'll keep their options open. Maybe depends what Sir Gerhard does if he shapes up as if he wants.
Yeah, I think that's what it will depend on. I think
in the Group 1 as well, they might.
Yeah. When you look at that, you look at the Ballymore market. Obviously, Sir Gerhard and Dysart Dynamo are top of it. I think it will all depend on if Sir Gerhard was to go out and really impress in the 2 mile. I think he will probably go the Supreme, but as you say, Dysart Dynamo is keen. I don't think Willie will do the Nicky Henderson thing of I've got 2 top class 2 milers. Let's just put them against one another. I think Willie will be more inclined to split them. So I would think it all depends on what Sir Gerhard does at the Dublin Racing Festival. Speaking of the Dublin Racing Festival, do we have any early fancies for the Dublin Racing Festival? Calum?
Not particularly. Ground is going to hinge a lot here. There's a lot of decent entries, but the trainers are kind of quite worried about ground going.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'd be wary at the moment and wait maybe till the day. I think St. Ra running the Champion Hurdle. I think a lot of them won't run that. Sharjah might not go, for instance. And if it is quick ground, maybe him at 20s. Statler as an each-way option against Galpin Deschamps, potentially at 10s. They're two kind of tenuous value angles. What I was interested in the preliminary entries was that Willie Mullins has entered 4 of his novices in the Dublin Chase as well as the Irish Arc.
Right.
Now that inclines to me that they might split them up and go Grade 1. So maybe one of Fernie Hollow and Blue Lord will go Irish Arc, or maybe one of them will go Dublin Chase, and that might give a little bit of a pointer as well that Shaq and Poursois might not make it.
Yeah,
he's entered novices and open Grade 1s. They might look a weak race, and they might highly regard some of the novices, and it gives Saint Sam and Hot and Colours a chance, and potentially the Irish Arkle as well. So he's looking to split horses up, and he's using open company as well for some of his talented novices potentially.
Yeah, there's an interesting thing when it comes to the Dublin Race Festival for the Irish Gold Cup. I believe there's a bonus if you win the Irish Gold Cup and go on to win the Gold Cup at Cheltenham. So you could see the likes of Galvin, Manelando. I think they are entered, but that could be an interesting race.
Yeah, Gordon Elliott's admitted last week that he's going to go straight to Cheltenham fresh. I think Manelando's probably the one the Gold Cup protagonist that might turn up here.
Yeah, I think this could be a massive race for Manelando. I think Vauban and Pied Piper, I think they could be interesting in the Grade 1. I'm not sure. I think you'll probably know better than me if Phil Dor was going to line up in that. Have you heard anything about Phil Dor? I know he leads the market, but I think there was talk that they were just going to go straight to Cheltenham. It
was up in the air. They were leaning towards Cheltenham. If the ground's quick, he'd certainly go straight to Cheltenham, I think. But, another run for a juvenile. It's not really a bad thing to get more experience in him, although he probably doesn't need it given how laid back he is. But either way, if he turns up, we wouldn't be bothered. I think he drifted a little bit last week, and if Pied Piper runs for the same colours, probably won't go.
We'll go to a final question. Can you each come up with a lucky 15 for the festival? 2 picks each at this early stage. You go first because you've got the better book than I do so far.
Decent one implies that he wants something at a decent price. So tell me something, Gil, for the Mayor's Hurdle. I think to get the ball rolling. It's been the plan all year, working back from there. And I think last time out was an encouraging run, another step forward from there. And I think she's bang there. I think she's the one that's got the most untapped potential. And heaven help us in Stormy Island. Both seem to be going there. They might take each other on. It might set up nicely for Tell Me Something Guilty come from the back like she did in the Mayor's Novice Hurdle and win again. I'm
going to go for a bog standard one. I know it's a decent lucky 15. Galloping Deschamps, I think, wins the Brown Advisory at 74, so I'm going to put him in there.
Okay, Florin Porter at 6s for the Stayers Hurdle. He's got a solid chance. Back at Cheltenham, I think it's an advantage to him over Classical Dream, particularly if they are allowed a fair start as well this time. Champ will be going here by the sounds of it now.
Yeah, I had that, yeah.
He's now 10, you have to worry a little bit about his well-being and back. So I don't think he's one to entirely trust from an Ante Post perspective right now. He's on the day, turns up, it's going to be a big threat, but Time Hill's a chance, but he's a bit of a weak finisher perhaps. So I think it's between the 2 Irish at the moment, and Florin Porter is too big in comparison to Classical Dream, so I'd stick him in.
I am going to go for, in the Ryanair, I think Janadal each way. I know I've got a one that's a real stick-on price, Galloping Deschamps. I think Janadal each way could be a real big price at 12-1 for the Ryanair, so he would be my second pick. We'll start on Wednesday at Leicester and Dysart. The horse I tipped up last week for the Turners at 33-1. Won his beginner's chase. I wouldn't say I was overly impressed with it. Won by 5 lengths. Very, very novice. A few wee niggly mistakes. My conclusion from this is I don't think he's going to go to Cheltenham.
No, I think a big festival will probably come too soon for him. He's obviously had his problems. I think he had a big fright. Injury in the gallops last season. They did well to get him back to Aintree. They've probably done well to get him back here, and he did look like a 3-miler. All his best work was at the finish towards the line, and some fences were omitted. He did gradually warm to his task a little bit better. I do think he's one to seriously follow. Probably not this season though. Maybe next year.
Yeah, I think that as well. I think it was one of those where I tipped him up at 33, thinking if he really impresses, he will half in price. It's unknown if he turns up again, but I think he's more an entry horse in my opinion. We'll move into Saturday at Kempton. Mr. Fisher won the Grade 2, beat the Eldorado Allen. He won it well. He did jump a lot better than he has. My thing with Mr. Fisher is, and I know you brought this up before, he'll win these kind of Grade 2s, but when you step him up to likes of Ryanair, I don't think he's at that level.
Yeah, he's not quite Grade 1 material. He could yet develop into it, but in small fields he excels in as well. These wee races, I think every race under 6 runners, I think he's been second and pulled it once in his career. It's and he's in 9 or 10 of those assignments. But you get burnt off in the Ryanair by Allaho like everyone else did. He did run really well to a point. If the race does cut up markedly and he does go there, then he could place. But it was a step up from his King George reappearance, and it was a weak Grade 2. I mean, Rouge Vif was clearly not going to stay. Defi de Soy they're just a desperately sad sight. And given his downgrades and Eldorado Allen was, I don't understand why you get involved in a pace battle with Rouge Vif, and all Mr. Fisher had to do was sit, stop, and pounce over the last because he does idle in front. And he thought he was going to win by 3 or 4, but he pulled himself up half time and won by a length and a half. It was really easy, but it was quite a boring spectacle to watch.
Yeah, it wasn't a great race either. But Mr. Fisher, he's about 16 to the Ryanair's. It's there, as you say, if the race cuts up, he could potentially be in contention. But we'll move into the Lanzarote. Cobbler's Dream was quite impressive. He's only been raised £6 to 128, which I thought was quite flattering for him. 20 to the Coral Cup. I think he could potentially have a chance in this race.
Yeah, he'll get a penalty for that and get in. Kempton's a different track to Cheltenham, though. There was not a lot of pace in this. I mean, the front two were the front two throughout. There was a bit of a mess in behind when there was an early faller that kind of really hampered Marie's Rock. Things like that happened, but dictated it well. Gradually went to the outside. It was a great ride. He gradually went to the outside to get better ground and grab the rail and powered away, which they tend to do in that race, interestingly enough. They kind of tend to go to the outside and find the better ground and bolt in. It's decent handicap form. Just whether they could translate that to Cheltenham form is open to question. Yeah,
I fancied Marie's Rock. She never really got going at all. She made an early mistake and that was her. Never really get back into it. We'll move into Warwick. A couple of horses to mention in here. Brave Seska was quite impressive in beating the Grand Annual winner Sky Pirate by 7 lengths. Now about 12 to 1 favourite for the Grand Annual. Venetia Williams does have a few really good chasers potentially for this spring festival. Brave Seska, I think, could be quite an interesting candidate for the Grand Annual.
Yeah, he's certainly ahead of the handicapper. He's probably going to take something else first. If you win that, then a bit of a doubt about is he too high on the handicap. We said that last year, right? With a Sky Pirate, he ran really well off 157, beating 7 lengths. So yeah, it's eminently possible. He does remind me of Iblio. Iblio was kind of out in that race as well and ran well. No nonsense, uncomplicated horse. He's going to have a prominent pitch, and if there's a bit of cut in the ground, he'd certainly be of interest if they kept his mark. I think it's 144 now. I mean, if they can keep it under 150, then you'd have a chance.
Yeah, I thought it was impressive. I think if you beat the winner of the race last year, I think you're entitled to take your chance in the race. So I think he could line up here. 300 through 5 was impressive as well. Made all jumped. I thought he jumped really well, actually. I thought that was probably the best he's jumped in his runs over fences. He's 12 for a National Hunt Chase. You would imagine with the kind of way how he's going to stay on. He looks a slow horse. That's the race to go for. But a lot of chats came out recently saying that because of Adrian Heskin, they think they might go for the Brown Advisory, but 16's for that. What would your thoughts be in that? Would you give him the chance to probably the National Hunt Chase would suit him more, but the Brown Advisory, you've got the jockey that will probably have the best relationship with him?
Yeah, I think the owners trust the jockey fully, so they'll go Brown Advisory at the moment. mean, things have changed. He's got entries for both. Chase entries came out this week, so they've entries for both. It's a decision that they can make, in 6 weeks' time, so and finalise it. But I mean, he's entitled to take his chance. He's a beautiful-looking horse.
Mm-hmm.
He really is a nice, striking individual in the paddock. He does look the part, and that is the best he's jumped over fences in his life. He does adjust slightly right. He does take off on the right side as well, and that's a negative at Cheltenham, for instance. But
you'd imagine if for that kind of thing, maybe the step up and trip would help that.
It would, but he might lose ground. And actually, I think Chase is shaping up to be a strong race as well. I mean, Run Wild Fred is rated in the mid-150s anyway. I mean, the Brown Advice is going to be strong. Wherever you go, it's going to be strong. And he's now rated in the mid-150s. He's shown signs that he's still improving, progressive. He's entitled to go there and take his chance. Would he be for me? Not particularly, given the depth of the race. But I mean, he is a beautiful-looking horse, and I hope he has a really good career.
Yeah, I think he could, yeah. We'll move into the Ballymore trial. Stag Horn for Archie Watson. Rated 103 in the flat. It looked a stare in the flat. Looks as if he's just going to stay in the over hurdles. Kept on well to win that race. 20s for the Ballymore, maybe 20s for the Bartlett as well. I think Bartlett just because of the flat pedigree he has.
Yeah, you can see. I think this horse is a bit dangerous to underestimate wherever he goes.
Yeah, I think I was quite taken.
He runs, he does run about a little bit. He could cause a little bit of mayhem from the front in one of these novice races. His jumping was very good though. Once he kind of adjusted correctly. A lot of Saturday's runners, I think, get really soft leads. He might have been one as well. It was an open race. The form might not be up to much, but given his flat rating and the way he's progressing, if you give him a similar freebie, he could be dangerous let loose in either way they go. If you're like a Ginto backer for the Ballymore, for instance, or a Journey With Me backer for the Ballymore, you are praying that he gets in because he will guarantee to make that race.
Yeah.
I'm on a test.
Yeah, I was actually quite taken. I like to see kind of flat horses doing well over hurdles, so it's nice to see. I would think he would go maybe Bartlett just because of obviously the staying he had on the flat, and obviously it looks as if he could do it over hurdles as well. We'll move on to the Pertemps qualifier. 6 runners, all 6 qualified. Sporting John won that. Obviously, he's now about 10-1 joint favourite for the Pertemps qualifier. He's a class horse. Obviously, we've always had his problems. He's won a Grade 1 over fences. Your overall takeaways from that race, and is Sporting John the one to beat in the Pertemps right now?
No, he's not. He's going to get. He's now mid-150s. You can carry weight if you get class enough, but he has bombed out in Cheltenham Festival and better ground before.
Yeah.
If it's better ground again, I think he'll struggle. But he is rediscovering some of his old class. There are well in Irish handicap horses that are in the mid-130s, and he's going to be given a stone and a half to probably 2 or 3 really kind of maybe potentially unexposed horses, and that's my worry with him.
Anything else in the race you liked, you took away from it?
I thought Saturday Belly ran okay given he was struck into. Again, he's got a similar kind of problem in terms of a lumber with weight, and he's getting on a bit. Sporting John was okay, but it was another steadily run race where class came into it. I thought Alaphilippe might have been the one to take out of it.
Yeah, I thought Alaphilippe ran a good race. I think though the thing with Alaphilippe, I know we said it last year, really needs soft ground.
Yeah, that's the problem with him in festival wise, but he's got a workable mark potentially. I think it was a race that was full of horses that are maybe not well in at the weights. Yeah,
we'll move into Punchestown. A couple of potential stars to mention here. We'll start with Dysart Dynamo. We touched on him earlier on. Won the Moscow Flyer by 19 lengths. Made all very impressive. Obviously took a really early lead and just continued to gallop. What were your thoughts? I thought it was a very encouraging performance.
Super performance. Willie Mullins has run some really good horses in this race. Tour, for instance, and won it, quite convincingly. Min won it. I mean, he looks another kind of potential top notcher. In the mid part of the race is where he just completely burned them off on a sharp track. Nothing can go with him. Killy Billy tried. His jumping fell to pieces as a result of it. High game was beaten a long, long way. And you'd probably bet that Polly Mullins' stable quite fancy him as well, given the Yard's kind of record of running quite talented novices in the race. Gringo de Brel's kind of picked up the pieces a little bit, but none of them could go the gallop that he set, and that he still hit the line really hard. One small quibble would have been the second last, where he wasn't particularly fluent. Apart from that, it was absolutely perfect.
The Moscow Flyer is an interesting one for Willie Mullins. He does use it as a potential to get his kind of unexposed novices. He's ran the likes of Tour, Duvan and Min, who went on to do well in the Supreme. I think he will go Ballymore with Dysart Dynamo, and the reason I think that is, I know he's keen, but if Sir Gerhard was to go and absolutely destroy the field in the 2 mile, I think Dysart Dynamo is the most scope to go on and win the Ballymore. I would say the Ballymore is probably the weakest of the 2 races. I think that's fair to say. I think Dysart Dynamo's probably looks more of a mid-trip horse compared to Sir Gerhard at this point.
And I think everyone's kind of debating of, and Seven Barrels have the same issue with John Bonnet and Constitution Hill. I think all 4 of these could feasibly run in the Supreme.
Yeah.
And they're all running at 2 miles, and they're all showing speed in a lot of gears. I don't really see the rush of stepping up. If the Ballymore does chronically cut up, then maybe one of them will go. But there is little to suggest on that run at Punchestown that you'd ever run him at 2.5 miles, given the way he's done it. He also makes all from the front twice. Is he going to do that in the Ballymore? Probably not. So I think he's certainly he's one that I would nail down to as a Supreme horse at this point in mind. I mean, you're thinking appreciate it all season. Surely he's going to go up and trip. He stayed unbeaten at 2 miles, and Willie Mullins, he does tend to keep his unbeaten horses at 2 miles.
I just think there's not a great deal of depth. We thought at the start of the season, Willie's going to have all these talented novice hurdlers. Kilcroot hasn't cut the mustard. What he wants obviously been beat. The horseshoe tipped up. He doesn't have a proper Ballymore horse, and it just seems weird. It doesn't seem like a Willie Mullins thing to do, to have 2 top class novice hurdlers and run them in the same race when you get a Ballymore with nothing.
Yeah, but he does have so many options. One 2.5 mile could come out the woodwork soon, but yeah, given how Kilcroot is disappointed a little bit, what do you want has disappointed, though he could maybe bounce back.
I think he's definitely going for that race. Like, what do you want? He will go for that race because of the owners.
Yeah, the sponsorship, and the owners. I mean, they're all 4 different owners, and when Willie Mullins was at his peak, in 2015, 2016, it was always been at his peak anyway. It tended to be Richie all the time. There are different owners here, and it's the owners that will ultimately kind of make the decision. Really, don't even fly in the King George. It was the owner that wanted to go there. Willie Mullins didn't.
Yeah.
So the owners will have a big say in this, and at the moment, I think all of them would want to go to the Supreme.
It could be if all 4 go, I think it could be one of the best Supremes we've ever seen. But we'll move into Bob Olinger. 10-11 now for the Turners. Very, very impressive, particularly from 2 out, where he just took the race by the scruff of the neck. How impressed were you with Bob Olinger?
Very good. 3 fences submitted, but his jumping was a lot better, a lot cleaner, and the way he pulls away from horses, he could kill off any race at any stage. That's his big asset, it's his engine that's one ask and he'll go. He was driven out to win, but not every horse can win on the bridle, comfortably as an odds-on favourite. You like to see what they can do coming off the bridle. His response is electric. And I think Capodanno's a very good horse. It'll go up to 3 miles. I think he was kind of badly hampered by the fences being omitted, because maybe he could have stole more of a mark, and he was still going with Bob Olinger towards the line. So it's probably a very good race, given how far back a decent horse like Garde de Menil was, who was ridden quite strangely and quite quietly, in my opinion. Does give some kind of significance to the form. He'll probably go straight to Cheltenham now for the Turners and maybe scare quite a few off.
Do you think he is on rock solid for the Turners at 10-11?
Yeah, I mean, Vinicius Williams are like mulling over like sending the long press to the Brown Advisor and things like that. And if Galpin Deschamps doesn't turn up here, which looks probable, given he'll probably go for the 3 miler, I think there'll be a lack of opposition potentially, and yeah, I can see him going off maybe 47, something like that, something like an Envoy Allen price.
Yeah, he's entered in the 2 mile 5 that Galpin Deschamps has entered in at the Dublin Chase Festival. He's not going for that, is he?
Very unlikely.
Yeah, very unlikely. But Bob Olinger again, magnificent. I think he's very, very hard to beat in the turners. It was the way he just took apart Capodanno. As you say, he is a good horse and probably will create some sort of scare for a big horse in the particular 3 mile. I don't think he'll go National Chase. I don't think he is qualified. Is it 3 races you have to race before you're qualified? Is it 4?
You need one really over 3 miles.
Right.
Get in now. You need to win it as well. So there was a big kind of debate about one of them a few years ago. It was desperate to try and get qualified. One of the favourites that Patrick Mullins was on.
I think it was carefully selected, wasn't it?
Carefully selected, yeah. That just couldn't jump, couldn't get round.
Yeah.
It was a clear plan for that race. It couldn't finish and couldn't win it. Yeah, I do think he's maybe a little bit better on that anyway. I think he might go for the Galpin Deschamps race as well.
Yeah, I think that could be another fascinating race at the festival. We'll move into Monday. It punches down a couple to mention. The Tide Turns won a juvenile hurdle for Gordon Elliott quite impressively, I thought. Won well. We'll touch on a certain horse later on in this, the Ante Post picks. But what was your overall thoughts on this race?
It was a good race. It was a good performance. Couple didn't run to form in behind.
One in particular didn't run at all.
Saddle slipped in Champion Green, didn't it? So that's an excuse. But there was strong support from the front. I think Gordon Elliott completely controls this juvenile hurdle market. Really, he's probably got the best Triumph Hope, maybe the best Boodle Scope as well. He's got 3 or 4 really good options, and he's one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it was impressive as well. I would take Vera Verto in third. He didn't jump well at all, but I think he could potentially be one. Better ground. That first day, I think, could be good for him. But yeah, the Tide Turns was impressive. Final horse to mention in the recap, Manila Crooner gave Journey with Me's form a big boost with a very impressive win by 11 lengths. He looks a stare. I think he could be a proper ballot contender.
Yep, get more experience into him. A relentless galloper. The form the time wasn't particularly impressive, but you can't knock what he did. I mean, he's done what he had to do in it, and the big improvement we're looking for was his jumping, and in a weaker race, it certainly excelled. He'd have an each chance in that.
Yeah, I thought it was a good horse. I really think he could be a potential ballot contender. I think he's exactly the profile for a ballot. I think they're going to Clonmel next for the race that Allaho beat Manel Ando in a couple of years ago, so that could be one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, that's definitely the plan.
Yep. We will move on to what's coming up this week. We'll take a look at what's coming up this week, and it's obviously being highlighted by the duel we all want to see. We've been waiting for it since last year's festival, and we didn't get it. The Clarence House Chase. As of this moment, it looks as if we are going to see Shishkin versus Energumene. Calum, before we get into talking about the race, this is what we want, and we want to see the best horses going up against one another. Yeah,
and it doesn't necessarily have to happen at Cheltenham either. I mean, it seems a good logical assignment for Energumene. Right-handed, potentially soft ground, even though having a dry week at Ascot, but the current going description is soft. And it looks like it's going to happen. It was priced up earlier on that Shishkin might not be the one that will go, and towards the end of it, the one that might not go would be Energumene. But they both seem to be holding their ground, and it's going to be a cracker. It's one we all wanted to see. It's the one we all want to see. What is your thoughts in the race? I think this is very, very different to what it would be at Cheltenham. I think if the ground is soft, I would just think Energumene might just win. It depends on price sensitivity. First flow excels at Ascot, for instance, so Kim Bailey-Yard will be saying that it's not really that much of a two-runner race, and it might not be. It's only £9 in feeder to Energumene. We haven't seen Energumene come over to Britain before. That'd be a slight doubt. And I think that the Arkle, the reason I kind of like Shishkin over him or the Arkle was because Energumene's going to make all, and you just think that'll suit Shishkin and track him and come and beat him. Going right-handed should be more suitable for Energumene potentially, but there's only a pound between them. I just have slight preference for Shishkin, but the prices would dictate what I do. But it's probably a no bet race. Probably just
it's probably just a second watch. If
Shishkin went to 8-11, I'd maybe back him.
Yeah, I just think as well. I think Shishkin will win the Champion Chase. I just hope we see a duel and both of them just really going for it. And if one wins by half a length, then you're still looking at the Champion Chase.
What if they do both go completely at it and both of them are softened up for the Champion Chase?
I know.
Cheltenham like the question you ask him, but it's a matchup we want to see, and I slightly prefer Shishkin.
Yeah, I just think Energumene. I think this could be his day. I don't think he'll win the Champion Chase. I don't think he'll beat Shishkin round Cheltenham. I just think that suits Shishkin more. The ground might be in Energumene's favour here as opposed to Cheltenham, where I think it might be in Shishkin's favour. I just think you're going for Shishkin, I'll go for Energumene. Send us your thoughts in below. What do you think will win the Clarence House if they both turn up? We've also got a Grade 2 Mares Hurdle at Ascot as well. Western Victory is 2-1. My Sister Sarah 3-1. Molly Ollie's Wishes 4-1. Before we talk about this, I think I saw Molly Ollie's Wishes entered in that race at Lingfield as well.
Yeah, Harry Skelling's.
That could be a good wee thing, that Lingfield done. That could build up to be a good wee hang in the next couple of years if they keep at that, because that could be what we're looking for. Maybe a few exciting prize money kind of races at Lingfield.
The Winter Million, Friday it's jumps, Saturday it's all weather, Sundays back to the jumps. It's kind of very financially orientated in terms of the class. Not a graded company, but it is good, competitive, and it gives the Mudlarks a chance because you tend to get really deep ground there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's certainly some decent races to watch there. For instance, Bristol Demise not going to Peter Marsh. He's going to go down there.
Yeah.
For instance, so it's certainly going to attract a few decent types. Whether I think Molly's Always Wishes is a really good chance if she runs in this Ascot race. I do think Steen probably her game. I think Dan Skelton's team have kind of had a little bit of a break over the winter. They've kind of quietened down, and now they're coming back to form. I think she could take this if she runs.
I think My Sister Sarah could be a good chance. I think she's won at Ascot already this season. She could be very, very interested in this race. So I would probably just go for her in this race. We'll move into Haydock. There's 3 races to mention here. John Bond will line up in the Supreme Trial. We understand he's 2-5. Might Eyes there, good risk at all. He should just win this, shouldn't he, and go even shorter for the Supreme?
He should do, unless he comes unstuck in deep Haydock ground, which can sometimes horses might not go to. I thought this is where he would go after he won the Kennel.
Yeah, so did I. Yeah.
In terms of the calendar, so what he seems to be doing, and he should win. Might Eye is his main opponent, which should give, if he gives his running, should give a direct angle into Constitution Hill, because Constitution Hill beat him rather convincingly. So that's another kind of clue in a potentially deep Supreme. John Bond might be the next thing to do something special, and he goes shorter again. So he really ought to win, as I would suggest. Yeah,
we'll move into the new one, Unibet Hurdle, which is a champion hurdle trial, but I don't think any of these are winning a champion hurdle. Tommy's Oscars at 4-6, Hunter's Call 6-4. What do you think?
Tommy's Oscar will win.
I think Tommy's Oscar will win.
Comfortably one of the best 2-mile hurdlers in Britain right now. Rated 156, the handicap company. He's defying top weight. His form's been flying left, right, and centre. Cracking horse for the Hamiltons, and this is a kind of race that's going to really up his street. Whether he'll take a chance in the champion hurdle at the back of it, I don't know. Probably be outclassed in that, but he's on the upgrade, and he's certainly entitled to go for these kind of soft graded races, which he could pick up easily at the moment. Yeah,
I think Tommy's Oscar will win. I think he's very, very likeable there at 4-6. We'll move into the Peter Marsh. We saw an excellent performance in this last year by Royal Pagaille. He's favourite to do the same this year. You going with the favourite? You taking him on?
He's a class angle in the race, but he's carrying top weight, isn't he? His injury history is fairly well documented now. I think he's had niggles since. He's had niggles beforehand. I think you have to take him on. Empire Steel would be the one that I'd like to back in the weights. I thought he was going to bolt up at Wetherby in the Roland Merrick. He's shaped up quite well. He just fell 3 out. David Pipe's yard art and form remuscle. I think Empire Steel off really lightweight, 10 stoner. I think there's something because of Royal Pagai's probable presence in the race. At the weights, deep ground, either stamina test, that'll definitely suit him.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you in that. I think Empire Steel could be the bet in this race. I think Royal Pagai could just go and blitz them all again, but Empire Steel at 5-1 excites me a wee bit. We've got a race at Thurles on Sunday, the Horse and Jockey Hotel Chase Grade 2. Allaho is entered, as is Fakir Doudary, but we listened to Richard Thompson last week and I didn't get the impression that Allaho was going to have a run before the festival.
No, that didn't seem to be the case. Interesting it's getting an entry though. Used Thurles before as preps, for instance, and things. I'd like to see him run. If he doesn't run, he might be wanting to take on the Ryanair because it's unusual preparation for him just to have one run and go. It suggests he did have a very attritional race, and it does suggest he is taking his time to get over it. And the way he races suggests that he needs to be really on it and at his best to burn them off. That's his style. So yeah, intrigued he turns up. Fakir Doudary obviously is next best. He is an entry in Lingfield as well. Don't know if he'll take that up, but
okay.
He's got other options, but Willie Mullins likes Franco Deport and things to pick up. But maybe Notebook will run quite well as well. But it's an intriguing race. I just have to wait and see how many of them turn up. Yeah,
well, I think Fakir Doudary will win if Allaho doesn't turn up. That was our look at what's coming up this week. We will take a look at our Ante Post picks. We're just going to put them along the screen just now. Calum, nothing really to talk about other than the weird run of Champion Green that we've now heard is down to the saddle falling. He's still favourite for the Boodles along. Your horse Britska isn't far away either. We could have a good hand in that race between us.
Yeah, if the market holds up, yeah, and they're both haven't bombed out, for valid reasons rather than reasons that you suspect. I think if you back Champion Green on the day, I think your fate was pretty sealed when he didn't even line up prominently.
He was ridiculously keen as well, wasn't
he? That suggested that something might kind of come up. Yeah, you would like him to settle a bit more. At least Britska kind of does settle, but he's been keen. He's still a maiden, for instance, and we'll have to wait and see what mark he gets now. And you'd expect him to still probably take his chance and have something in hand. Like Britska might as well. So it's a wait and see in that. Jerry Calum is an entry at Thurles on Sunday.
Yes, he does, yeah.
And it's a 2 mile 7 one, which suggests Albert Bartlett. Torygraph ran there last year, for instance. He's ran some decent horses in that. Dortmund Park ran there, for instance. There are quite a few. It's a Race Monkfish one.
Mm-hmm.
High Ho Phoenix is the Willie Mullins representative. Willie Mullins doesn't have a lot for this. He's 33-1 right now, and this could be a really hot race. And sometimes it proves to be a really hot race between Elliott and Mullins. And this could be one that's kind of, a kind of sleeper kind of event here with these two. You still get 25s and Jerry Calum for the Bartlett. You still get 33s in High Ho Phoenix. If the likes of Ginto and go take your chance in the Ballymore and all your Supreme horses, stick to the Supreme. And the Bartlett all of a sudden becomes placing Cal against the field a little bit. And I've always been inclined to take Blazing Cal on. I think these two might be. So if you like Jerry Calum, maybe have a cover on High Ho Phoenix in case those two can really do pull away and dominate, because that can be quite a decent little race. And I think the lucky 15's now 650-1.
Yeah, very good. We'll touch on our picks this week. We've got 2 each. I'm going to give the floor to Calum for your first pick. What is your first pick of this week's show?
It's in the Kim Muir. It's a horse called Smoking Gun at 20-1. The Gordon Elliott team. A lot of interest over the last couple of weeks of Gordon Elliott kind of beginning to send horses over to try and get some preliminary marks for Cheltenham. And while a lot of people focus on the Pertomps, for instance, he had 4 kind of potential Kim Muir types. First one was Glenn Lowe, who was backed into 20s from 10s.
He didn't jump well at all, did he?
Sunday, and he showed his kind of fragilities of old and reasons why he's never made that race before. And at 11, he just can't seem to string 2 runs together.
Yeah.
You'd have doubts about him. Plus, he's rated 135. It would be a bit tight to get in normally. Breeside was the other one. He was 145 off his Irish mark, but 148 in Britain, so he wouldn't get in. Death Duty's also 11. He'd be off 142. He'd get in. But Smoking Gun was 138. He was the only one that was left unchanged, surprisingly. Maybe because he's a 9-year-old and he's got pretty exposed back form, but he's improved markedly from switching from Joseph O'Brien to Gordon Elliott's stable. He won the Porterstown at Fairyhouse in his last start by 3 lengths. It got him up to 138 from 130. He won it quite convincingly. He goes in any ground practically. Stay. He's been to Cheltenham before. He's been 5th in the National Hunt Chase. And his last 8 runs have been all 8 different jockeys have been on, so they're not really bothered by what conditional you really book from. Gordon Elliott's won 3 of the last 6, including the last 2 effective. Denise Forsyth had the licence. Something maybe unexposed that he has might come into play. Maybe a Torograph, maybe a frontal assault. Those are the 2 that you'd be a bit concerned about if they get marks in time for it. Given their unexposed profile. But I think Smoking Gun at the weights and the preliminarily suggest he might be the one. And if you type Smoking Gun Kim Muir into Twitter, the 2 weeks beforehand, he was at Porterstown. Gordon Elliott was saying this is a potential Kim Muir horse. And he bought it from a dispersal sale from Gigginstown when they were winding down. So so he's going to run him in these kind of Irish national. These big kind of handicap chases, big targets, and the fact that he partially owns him and it's a syndicate, I think he's entitled to take his chance. I think he's quite interesting at 20s, given that this has been a potentially mooted plan since mid-November.
So you are going for Smoking Gun at what price for the Kim Muir?
20 to 1.
20 to 1. I'm going to go for a horse at 14 to 1 for the Albert Bartlett. I've been looking for a Bartlett horse for weeks and I've had different ideas, but I think I've got one now. I think Manila Crooner could be my Bartlett horse. Obviously, there's that very good line of form with Journey with Me. Stayed on really well against Kilcrut. Kilcrut obviously was winding down in that race and was getting weaker, but Manila Crooner was outpaced at 2 out and stayed on. Couldn't obviously get to Journey with Me, but I took a lot of encouragement from that, and I took a lot of encouragement from his run the other day, 1 by 11 lengths. I think he could be very, very the exact type of Bartlett horse you're looking for. Just will stay on, has that experience. Obviously, as a 2 runs with a bumper horse in November. I think he'll run again. I think he'll get a bit of experience in that race at Clonmel. Manila Crooner 14 to 1 for the Albert Bartlett. That is my first pick of this week's show.
Yeah, sound each way chance.
What's your second pick? What's the next one?
It's a British trained horse.
Oofed.
Can you believe it?
Mm-hmm.
It's Call Me Lord, the Coral Cup at 25 to 1.
Okay.
He was 3rd in the Lanzarote last week, and outside of a race where nothing off the pace get into it, he managed to win that race in behind, 7.5 lengths. He's off a mark of 144 now. He's only a 9-year-old. Nicky Henderson's won 4 of the last 11 Coral Cups, including the second one, Craig Nice, with Heaven Help us, just got a complete freeway and bolted up. At Kempton, he was also hampered by a loose horse as well. They were going to the line, trying to get out. It didn't quite unfold his way. There was more hard luck stories in behind, but he was one that he just has a lot of back class. Look at William Henry, who won it in 2019. He had a lot of back class. Whisper, for instance, real good potential horses, and they were off higher marks than him. William Henry won it off 151. This fella ran off 144. It's just he looks well handicapped. They tried to go novice chasing with him this year. It didn't work, but in return, handicappers dropped him notably, even for hurdles. And he's just showing some old spark at a track where, a lot kind of went against him in the Lanzarote and he still run well. track would be plenty sharp enough. You wouldn't really associate him at Kempton. He normally prefers a stiffer finish like Sandown or Cheltenham, for instance. I think 2.5 miles is now his trip, given his age, and I just think he can be quietly ridden, and a strong pace in a Coral Cup could really, really suit him, because he can certainly fly late up that hill. I'm hoping for like a William Henry kind of. He beat a really classic horse with Willie Mullins, didn't he? In terms of that, and Wicklow Brave. So I mean,
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That class can go for a long way. 9, he's not completely aged out of it. 144. I mean, he's winning. He's a 2-time Grade 2 winner. He won at Cheltenham. Not off 160, but he was rated 160. You know, I don't think he's a 16-pound inferior horse now because of a couple of poor runs over fences, which he didn't like. I mean, you're surprised he was going that way anyway. But this is a handicap that Nicky Henson targets a long, long way out, and price if it wasn't. I mean, Sandown Imperial Cup days, you'd think that would suit him, but I think 2 miles is just too short from now. So I think 2.5 miles here and then to Sandown at the end on Celebration Chase Day would be absolutely up his street. Instead of, he was kind of betwixt and between. He was kind of not quite graded level of old last season, but too high in the handicap really to do himself justice. Like, you know, for like 155 and 152 and 115, things like that. 144 gives him a decent chance, and you'd have to think that they'll be mindful of what happened to Heaven Help Us last year, and that it wouldn't be such a crawl like it was last year. It's usually a soundly run race. That would suit him down to the ground. He can act left-handed. He's probably a little bit better going right-handed, but you know, this stiff finish at Cheltenham, the marker 144, his back class, how the trainer targets it, I think he's got a knocking each way shout at 25-1 right now.
Brilliant. Call me Lord for Calum for his second pick. My second pick is in the any race market, and it was a horse that I was very taken with over the New Year period. El Fabiolo for Willie Mullins. He's 7-1 to win any race. Now, he's obviously got the option of going either in the graded company. I think he will line up in the Grade 1 at Leopardstown. I think he's County Hurdle written all over him. I think, obviously, Echoes and Rain is obviously the talking horse just now due to our friend Gavin picking them for their show this week. I think El Fabiolo could be really, really interesting for that race. I think he's similar to San Ran, the way that he's not had a lot of experience, not a lot of kind of knowledge of him before that race. Looked really, really impressive that day. I think 7-1 any race. I think he's county. I was going to tip him up for the County Hurdle, but there's always that wee thing of could he go supreme? So I think 7-1 any race. I'm just going to cover myself quite well there.
Yeah, I think he's definitely an interesting horse wherever he goes. It does remind me of last year of me and Ganapathy, for instance.
Yes.
For every Saint Ra, there's Ganapathys that sometimes don't handle handicap heat, but yeah, I probably think he'd probably go County Hurdle as well at the moment.
Yeah,
given the two options that Willie Mullins has at the moment for Supreme, but you know, Isaac Munir, Isaac Swain, Simon Munir, they do tend to aim big when they can. You know, I mean, Blue Lord could have been rerouted easily instead of going to Supreme, so I think it'd be the right decision in that instance. So you could see him sitting grade up company. He does have an entry in that race at Dublin Racing Festival with Sir Gerhard. I'd expect him to take it up, and expect that would reveal a lot more. So yeah, 71 any race would be fair enough. Yeah,
well, El Fabiolo is my second pick. That is going to do us for this week's show. Thank you very much to everyone that's tuned in. We might not have a show this week. There might be a wee other reason for that maybe we'll explain next week. Calum, thank you very much for taking part. It's been an absolute pleasure as always.
Yep, definitely.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, everyone, for watching. Please subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channels and follow us on social media. Thanks very much. See you soon. Cheers.